Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we've got a top 8 breakdown for our first event in the GD02 meta. It was a triple winner box that we held last night, and we did do a live stream for as well. And real quick before we get started, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We make a lot of content for the Gundam card game, and I don't want you guys to miss it. Also, if you guys want deck lists for this event or many others, you can find them in my website, Eggman Events, which is linked to the description. We're going to have continued updates for deck lists, my own personal builds, and it's going to be a really good resource for this second set as well. So also, if you guys want to check out the live stream, it's linked to the description. I did a commentary with Risu, which was a lot of fun. I really appreciate him being free for it as well, and I really just enjoy testing this game, playing this game, and it's been a lot of fun already. So real quick, also, I know I can already feel the comments like, oh man, wing best deck and format already, confirmed, that kind of stuff, and I think that's a little bit too surface level for how far we are into this meta. Two obviously did it very well. We do see of our top 8, we do see 4 copies of green white wing 0, 3 copies of blue purple ping, as well as a single copy of a blue and white Epyon blockers as well. So not as diverse as I think as other decks or metas can be at the same time, but also, I think that green and white and blue and purple are already known decks going into the end of GD01, kind of in the Star Deck 05 format. Like blue purple was already topping events, even with just a couple purple cards that we got out of Star Deck 5. So having the color kind of fully fleshed out has been very good for it too. But I also think that if I'm allowed to cope just a little bit, that green and white has been like the most consistent deck in this game, in the fact that it's just very present. The fact that what the exact 50 look like to kind of be established in this meta. We have added a couple changes which we're going to talk about, but I do think that the fact that green white is like the safety pick for people who want to play a strong deck without having to test more of the new stuff, I think that's something that you can see with this one. So I'm going to say that obviously green white is going to be very strong in this format still, but I don't think that if you just see like this 164 person event and just kind of write off the rest of the meta, I think that's kind of irresponsible. And I think that there are chances for other decks to be viable, and there's a lot of other decks that I've been testing and playing with that I think could also do well, and we're just gonna have to see what the next couple of weeks look like. So we do have that top 8. Also, if you want to see the color breakdown, we have 22 green and white, 11 copies of blue purple as well as blue white, and then 9 copies of blue red, 4 copies of red white, 3 copies of blue green, 2 copies of green red, and 2 copies of purple red. So still a lot of different color archetypes going around. You can see that blue's been very popular. I think blues takes up over half of the color combinations in this set right now. White's pretty much there, but it's also a little bit carried with green white, and then obviously purple still getting a little bit of footing with only blue purple and red purple being the present ones, but still blue purple doing very well, and spoilers winning the event, and just kind of the other combinations from there. But in general, right, I think we do have a good split of what different kind of color breakdowns could be going for this meta. It's not clearly like a sense where green white is like clearly the best. It did take up about 30% of this meta, right, as we see it. But I also don't think that's too absurd for this week 1. So we'll keep an eye on that. Again, obviously I'm not saying that green white is bad, but I do think that basing it off of one event, you got to get a little bit more data before having kind of more generalized ideas of what the meta can look like too. So that's there. We're going to look at the top 8. So we do have 3 unique builds we're going to look at as well. And then also for the rest of the X2, since top 8 had an X2 bubble into it, I did want to go over all the unique kind of color combinations and decks for the X2. So that includes a unicorn blockers, 2 different copies of Qubeley ping with 1 red purple and 1 red white, as well as a blue green Zeon aggro as well. So starting off, we're going to look at our first place list, which is Brandon's build of the blue and purple Barbatos ping. And if you guys know me, I've been doing a lot of this in the Star Deck 5 format. It's a deck that I think was getting, even without any additional support, I think that the Mikazuki August pilot was just fantastic, right? Generically, just very good. The fact that you're able to just get 1 damage to anything on your opponent's side without asking any other questions is great. You do, I guess, have to ping your own thing, but that's usually just such a minor thing. It really just makes this pilot like a +2 0 health, if you want to think of it that way, which is still fantastic for what it is. So this pilot, I think, what made purple viable by itself, and then having like obviously the things that linked with it. We've got the second form as well as the 4th form as well, but we don't have to use that much more to get the advantage of it. But we do get some new cards in in GD02 primarily we do get the first form of Gundam, Barbatos, which I think this card is still strong. I think it's a little bit tricky for you to get consistently the draw from it, but also the fact that you don't mind just using this card with the Mikazuki to make it a 5 AP, so you can pressure a lot of things on board without having to like lose out on the card advantage is nice. And there are some times where you can play this card and then afterwards play something like Gundam Gujan Rebake and be able to get that damage, so then you get the draw, which is still in a good spot. So also super love this card. This is still one of my favorite cards in the set right now. I do think that it's great at being able to kind of set up some really good value trades, as well as being a blocker to kind of protect some of your other cards on board at the same time. So this card kind of does it all. I will say that, you know, sometimes 3 AP is not enough to bust a base sometimes, but the rest of it feels pretty great. So we got a lot of additional ping cards from Guntank and Angsha. We do have our bases of the Corsica base and the Nail Argama, which I've been playing this in my blue purple before as well. The fact that we do get the additional rest is really important. But also, it's really easy for our opponent to have 3 or less HP with the amount of like ping effects that we have, and being able to, you know, even like Mikazuki to put them there, or even like using the Gujan rebake to be able to get there too. So we have 2 copies of With Iron and Blood, 2 copies of Fatal Strike. The only other card I would consider is like 1 or 2 copies of like the Awaken to be able to play something from our trash. It's anything level 5 or lower, which could be used as a Gujan or something like, for example, if we have an Amuro Ray or a Mikazuki in our hand, there are a lot of chances for us to be able to just use that to convert into the card that we need to go for game with it. So I think the deck is in a really good spot right now. We're going to see a lot of blue purple. I think it's probably like the front runner from the set, just because like obviously it had been doing well again in STO5, and I expect to see a lot more of this as well. So I also think this card, even if it's just like a worse copy of Star Deck 1 Gundam, sometimes it's still like a really good card that links with Amuro, and the fact that you can get a card draw with it pretty easily, and the fact that you still get to get the rest and a repair, which means it's obnoxious to deal with. I think it's worth having like a flex copy 1 or 2 to be able to just get, you know, help get your chances of like Amuro on curve, which can help you in a lot of blocker matchups. So here's again the build from Brandon. Congratulations for their first place with the blue and purple Barbatos. Next up, we've got green, white, and we've got Jimmy and with their build. And I will say, if you guys check through some of the builds that were in the top 8, there will be some differences between them. This one I'd say is like pretty standard for honestly what I was running at the end of Star Deck 5 format. I do think that the Sword Strike Gundam is still really great in this format, being able to get some 2-for-1s. The fact that it trades very favorably against an Amuro kind of makes them have to have a ping to get rid of, and you also get rid of like usually a 2 HP unit, which most of the time they will have, so it really kind of stymies a lot of their forward momentum. Freedom Gundam is still a great card for our late game too. We've got Wing Gundam. I do also like the Shenlong Gundam, which I think this card is more relevant than we've seen previously, with people running not only the Lilfirth but also the the Rick Dios. That card's been really popular lately. Just being able to get rid of those any blocker with a level 3 or lower is very, very easy for this card to do. So we don't really have any way to play it all out. We just play it out and then we just hope that's enough. But I think that is strong for this deck in general. So other than that, we're only playing 8 pilots, 4 heroes, and 4 Kiros. We're playing 4 copies of Desert Base, 4 Overflowing Affections, 2 Unforeseen Incidents, and 3 copies of Striker Pack, and then the rest of the deck here. So like we're not even playing, like this is sincerely a set 1 deck, right? We're not even playing the Rick Dios. They could use the cards from Rick Dios to be able, like the proxies, since proxies are illegal for it. But I know some people are just like, you know what, Zord is good enough as well, and there are some times we're playing it for a level 2 instead of a level 3 is fine. So I do think that's fine, right? But again, like this was sincerely, like this was an optimized 50 card list at the end of GD01 meta, so it's not surprising to me that it still does really well into GD02, and it's something that people are going to have to reach up to with their deck building, and I don't think that it's something that's going to go away overnight. So don't be, I think, discouraged the fact that this deck is still doing well quite yet. We're going to see if there's ways to combat it, and congratulations to Jimmy for their 2nd place finish with the Wing Zero. If you guys want to check out any of the other builds, again, they're going to be on Eggman Events, links in the description. All right, next up we've got Leon with the kind of unique top 8 finish of the blue-white Epyon blockers, and I still think like blue-white is like the most flexible color combination in the game right now. There's just so many different ways to build the decks. There's just so many good cards. The fact that you have Overflowing Affection, Unforeseen Incident's been really good. A Show Resolve, like Striker Pack. These are just great cards. We've got Amuro and Gundam. We've got also the potential for like Ale Strike and everything, right? You're going to find out pretty quickly you're going to run out of spots for your deck to be able to get your, abilities off for that one. But the idea for this one is that we're just like a really early blocker deck. We have the Zawart, the Ilfrith, the Rick Dios, right? We have 11 blockers that we can play on turn 3, and then 5 more we can play on level 4 with the Strike Gundam as well as the Striker Pack, and that's just a lot of like defensive momentum that you can use to be able to get to the late game a little bit easier, right? So the idea I think for this deck is that we want to do a lot of 1-for-1s, and if we do that, we do have our Gundam Epyon in the late game to be able to go like essentially 0 for 2. The fact that this card will let us draw 2 cards essentially if we play it right to get that effect. There is a ruling that came up during the live stream and for some of the games that I want to make sure that you guys know at home, whether you're playing Epyon or you're playing against it. The effect is during link once per turn. During your turn, when one of your units destroys an enemy unit with battle damage, set this unit as active. So the way that this is also ruled is that it's whenever the first time it sees one of your units destroy an enemy unit with battle damage. So the kind of scenario that popped up was that someone played a Gundam Epyon. They attacked with the Tallgeese first. The Tallgeese, attacked and got blocked by something, and then that actually activates the Epyon effect. Right? It doesn't matter that it's active. It still sees that something was destroyed by battle damage, and then it will activate its effect to set it to active, and it's a once per turn. So it kind of misses out on the second attack that you would get otherwise. So make sure you guys know that ruling. That also could mean like there usually are ways to play around not getting the double attack, but there is just like it's really important to know when that can happen. So I think that's important for this deck in general. So other than that, we are playing like this X Marquise. We're playing like the Nail Orgama. We do have the Beneath the Mask, which I have not seen this card ever being played. I do think that it's a little bit weak at times, but being able to choose 1 to 2 enemy units that are level 2 or lower to rest them is great, especially if you're playing against a deck with tokens. You can rest like a Striker Pack token with this, which kind of feels really good a lot of the time, right? Especially like if you have like your Gundam out with like your ability to attack into things. I think that's like still like could be potentially a really great effect for the deck. So I don't know if it's a card that's going to catch on outright, but the fact that we also have like the Nail Orgama, we have a lot of ways to rest units, which is great for again Gundam being able to attack into them and then repair the damage immediately, or for Epyon to be able to attack into them later, or even like the Tallgeese with the conjunction of the Zex Marquise as well. So I think all that's very strong. Again, blue-white has some of the best cards I think in the game generically, and so because of that, it's always going to be like some of the better support colors. And when you put both of them together, you're just going to get a lot of draw and consistency. And again, Amuro Ray is like such a good card. Like you're never the worst deck in the room if you're able to play 4 copies of this boy, right? So I think this is a really cool build. I haven't found a lot of success personally with copies of Gundam Epyon, but this deck looks really interesting, and I want to see if there's a way for me to make it work as well. So here's a build from Leon. Congratulations for their top 8 with the blue and white Gundam Epyon. So next up we do have our X2. So these are decks that were able to get an X2 finish and could have bubbled into our 8th place here. So we're going to start off with Will's version of, I'd say, Unicorn blockers. We've kind of seen this deck a little bit in GD01 previously, where there's kind of like this blocker deck on the early game, and then we're able to then use our Unicorn to kind of gain control for the mid game, which I still think like Unicorn Destroy mode into our Unicorn mode into the Destroy mode is still like a really great combo. We get a lot of cycle. We are kind of dependent on seeing our pieces, and it's a little bit wild to me that we're playing 3 Bonager links and also like no copies of Overflowing Affection. We're only playing 3 copies of the Show of Resolve. So I think that's a little bit peculiar to me. It means that I think it's going to be a little bit tough to be able to consistently find our pieces for those plays, but doesn't mean that it's a bad play. It's just like a little bit peculiar for me personally. So I do think like again there are so many decks that can exist right now in the game where if you just play like the level 3s and level 2 blockers, it just kind of gets you into like your later game a little bit more consistently. Again, that means that you can also play this Gundam with a little bit more success in drawing the card, which is really important. You are still you're not going to get the boost across the board, which is a little bit tougher if you're an aggressive deck. But if you are a defensive deck where you can pick and choose when you're using your blockers, I think this card is going to be really, really relevant in the next couple weeks. So this is one that I've been using a lot more recently. I've been finding a lot of success with as well. So other than that, I don't have much more to say. I will say it's a bit bold to play Choo Choo's Demi Trainer in a format where there's so many ways to deal 1 damage, especially with purple being around. But if you get your draw 1, discard 1, if you get it working, then then you are able to get there. So I won't say it's the bad card. It's just like I'm surprised a little bit with purple being so relevant. But this is the build here from Will. Congratulations for their X2 finish with blue and white. The next up we've got two different decks of like I will call them Qubeley ping. These are also going to be like cyber new type ping. Like there's so many like kind of different archetypes. Like this is kind of also like a Barbatos deck, right? But since it has like Qubeley as like the top end, that's usually kind of a determination, right? That's usually kind of depends like if you're playing the Haman Karn. You're not playing this card unless you're playing Qubeley, right? So I think that's something that kind of distinguishes in my mind, and you guys can kind of decide if you like that or not. There's it's so difficult to be consistent with archetype names in this game in general. But we have Apia's version of the deck here, and honestly I've almost played this deck 50 for 50. There's a lot of great abilities that you get to do because of this deck and this construction. We're playing 11 pilots, which is a little bit high, but when almost all of them just say essentially deal 1 damage, it's hard to not play them in these situations, especially since we have like the Gujan rebake. We've got the Kshatriya, which Kshatriya does have the paired effect with both the Merida Cruz as well as the Haman Karn. We do have the Barbatos 4th form at 2 copies, as well as again the Qubeley itself, right? So we kind of have access to 5 cards that have suppression. The fact that Qubeley can also just do damage, and if your opponent doesn't get rid of it immediately, you can do 2 damage every turn afterwards, which is huge, and that helps the deck a lot. I also like Qubeley because it can do this effect where you are able to use it to get rid of a blocker that was preventing you from attacking into shields, and then you get the suppression effect at the same time, which I think that is really, really good in those scenarios. So other than that, we do have like our low end of like a bunch of our 2/1s. We do have the Barbatos 1st form, you have the Hakurin, you have the 2nd form and the Kshatriya. And honestly, like this is like a pretty, I would say, basic build of like 4s and 2s of a lot of cards. A couple 3s, we got 1 copy of Jin for the swag, which I'm gonna guess that we just didn't have an extra copy of Zaku Mariner hanging around or something. But or we don't have like the common plus for it, which is also a valid reason to play a 1 of for that Jin for it. But this deck offers a lot of pressure. It offers a lot of ways to remove cards. And Kshatriya is still like, I think, is a valid card to build your entire deck around. So I think that's really great. So the only thing I would say for this build, and you're going to hear this like for a lot in the next couple weeks, you should probably play like a copy or 2 of Awakened Power. I think the card is good enough. You can't play out any 6 costs or higher, so you can't play 4th form or your Qubeley. But like when you play Kshatriya in your deck and you can play a 5th copy of Kshatriya by having Awakened Power, I think it's almost always worth it. Like, it's such a good card. Gujian Rebake as well. If you're playing 2 of the like best level 5s in the game, you could probably try to find a spot for 1 or 2 copies of Awakened Power. But I digress. I think this build is still really great. Big fan of the Shuji's Hideout just because we are almost always playing a card on curve. So being able to have that 1 extra cost is a little bit tricky to find like a room for a 2 cost. So I think the 1 cost makes a lot more sense. And you can get some nasty ping damage with it as well. But this is Apia's build, and congratulations for their top 16 with the red and purple Qubeley. And then we also do have the white and red version of this, so the red and white version of it, which this could have like a bunch of different names too. Like we've got the strike package with it. We're not playing any of the Justice Gundam, but I do think that people have been trying out like not only like the standard version, like Atherin I think is like kind of valid. I know a lot of people are playing the, oh man, why I can't, the name of the card escaped me. It's from Star Deck 4. It is the Aegis Gundam. So obviously this card has been very great. I know a lot of people have been playing this previously, and pretty much playing it on top of like the actual LR for the set, the Aegis Gundam from this one. But honestly, this card's been getting a little bit more powerful too. If your unit has 5 or more AP, this unit does choose 1 enemy unit that's level 5 or higher, and you get to deal 3 damage to it. So there's just a lot of decks that I think have cards that are level 5 or higher now compared to where we were in GD01. So that effect I think actually comes up a little bit more. But any of that aside, like I think red white is actually like a little bit better than it was. I think it was missing out on a little bit of something in the previous format. And this one I think you get like some really good like removal ping damage as well. You have like the sword strike, the ale strike, all that you can't be really going wrong with. Again, your early game is Ilfrith and Rick Dios. You do also have like a Kshatriya, you have Qubeley, you have close combat if you want to deal more damage, Battle of Aces. There's just like a lot of damage that you can put out with this deck, and you can really get some really favorable trades because of the damage that you get with it. So with that in mind, I think that this is a really interesting color combination. Red white was able to get like some really choice finishes in a couple events during our GD01 meta, and I think it's still going to be like a pretty unique color combination that's still going to be able to get some surprise finishes for the next couple weeks as well. So I don't have much more to say about this one. I think that Qubeley is still like just a really good card to play around. I think like your main pilots are going to kind of focus on the Merida crews, and I think most people are playing 3 copies of Haman just because it's not as important as Merida. At least you don't need it as early as you do need the Merida, and then having like 3 copies of the Kira. I like the 4-3-3 split in decks like this where it makes sense as well. So also playing the Shuji's Hideout, again, just a great card that lets you, like, sometimes you don't have, you know, time for playing the 2 resources for Relula, and Shuji's Hideout you can also play early, and then eventually like you'll get the ping damage, which can be good. So really like this build as well. Congratulations to Mitchell for the finish with the red white Qubeley ping. And then to wrap it up, we do have all reliable is Joseph with the blue and green Zeon aggro. So one question I was asked a lot during the tournament was how many people were playing blue and green, and again we can focus on it right here. We're seeing 3 people, so a third of them were able to get an X2 finish or better, which is this build of it. And honestly, this isn't anything too different, right? We have one choice ad from GD02. It is the white Gundam. It's a link that only links with Char, which we do play some Chars in the deck, so it's just like a cheeky little additional 3-drop, right? We are playing the max copy of Zaku 2s for the Star Deck one, as well as the GD01 one, and then we just have one additional copy of that for that. So I mean, having a 5 AP unblockable is great with high maneuver, so that helps us. We were playing the Anksha and the Gundam. We have Amuro Ray, Corsica base, and the 1 copy of Showa Resolve. So nothing too crazy. I do think that with more people playing like blockers, and also the fact that blue purple has access to not only like ping damage, but also Gujian is like still one of my favorite cards in this game right now. The fact that we have a blocker that also can ping a damage on a unit just means that I think that blue and green just has a bit of a difficult time keeping up with all the damage and blockers that are going on right now. But I also think that it's a deck that's not really represented much right now. I do think that there could be a chance that people just aren't in, you know, they played a lot of it in GD01. They want to take a break from it. They want to try something else. And I do think that this stack will have a little bit of a spike going into the you know, the next couple of weeks as people kind of go back to it after they try some stuff from GD02 and realize, you know what? Sometimes rushing them down is still just good enough, and I do agree that's probably good and against a lot of these decks still as well. So not much more to say for this one. Congratulations for Joseph for taking blue green and doing well with it, and here is the build there. But that's going to be it for this one. Again, I do know that, yeah, surface level, yeah, obviously Wing's doing well. There wasn't a lot of variety in the top 8 for this one in particular, but I still think there's a lot of potential for a lot of decks to do well right now. And I'm still having a lot of fun doing my own testing. I've been having a lot of fun playing the game. And if you guys can't tell about the way that I talk, the amount of content that I've been making, I really do believe in this game. And I've been having a really, really good time with it. So not much more to say from there. We're going to do some testing later in the week. There's going to be more content as we see it. And I'm looking forward to the future of the GD02 meta. So that's going to be it for us. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.